To Illinois folks, I'm also in Chicago, so close by. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dumebi Igbuna. I'm one of the co-founders of Chezi. For those who aren't familiar with us, we are an ERG management software. So we help companies streamline and automate a lot of the manual tasks that go into ERG management, while helping them to track the impact of their ERGs on their organization. I'm super excited for this webinar because I think we're all kind of in this weird space trying to figure out what does the future of DEI and belonging look like. Q1 was a very monumental kind of quarter for a lot of folks, especially with the executive orders and some of the new legislation from the Trump administration. So we wanted to put together this webinar to just kind of have a discussion around what the future of your ERGs could look like by repositioning them under ESG and CSR. So with that said, I have our wonderful speaker here, Sharita Marshall. She's our in-house trainer and consultant, and she's prepared a really great presentation to take us through, to just kind of walk us through what that transition could look like for you and your organization. I will pass it over to Sharita. She'll kick off the webinar, and then we will do a Q&A at the end. So feel free to drop your questions in that Q&A box, and I'll help facilitate when we get there. So without further ado, Sharita, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you so much, Mbe. I appreciate it. And thank you to everyone that is joining right now. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and I'm going to go off camera for the presentation. So please feel free to put any questions or comments that you have into the chat, and then we'll go ahead and facilitate a Q&A at the end of the session. So with that, I'm going to load the presentation, and just please put a thumbs up or a one in the chat when you're able to see it. Oh, awesome. Okay, so today's presentation is around future-proofing your ERGs. To Demebe's point, she mentioned what we're dealing with right now with the new administration, and a lot of things are under scrutiny and close observation related to anything around DEI, and ERGs are no exception. So when we think about future proof in our ERGs, it's important to make sure that whatever we do, it is ingrained within our organization to help to give them cushion to any type of blowback or pushback that either the administration may have or even internally from within your organization. So with that, I want to introduce myself. I am the founder of Visionary Development Consulting. I'm also the lead trainer for Chezi, and I specialize in ERG program management. If you are not connected with me on LinkedIn, please go ahead and take a moment to take a screenshot of that QR code and connect with me on LinkedIn. I share tips and tricks as well as information through my LinkedIn newsletter. So I am more than happy to connect with everyone. So we do have an impactful agenda. So we're going to talk about why this shift matters and is important right now. We'll talk about the 5 shifts to strategic alignment, how to navigate the political and legal pushback some of you may be facing or could face in the future, as well as building your ERG, ESG, or CSR action plan, and then also the ERG alignment and impact sprint. So when it comes to ERGs, let's just be blunt for a moment and understand that we are at a crossroads, and it's not by choice. ERGs have to continue to evolve. We did not think they were going to have to evolve in this manner, but here we are. So when we think about ERGs across industries, they are being challenged, they are being politicized, and some of them are even being eliminated. Not because they fail, but because the landscape around them has changed. From the political pressure to questions around organizational impact to budget scrutiny demanding hard, provable ROI. ERGs don't evolve risk being sidelined. They could be cut or they could be quietly pushed to the side. And we want your ERGs to remain powerful and impactful. We want them to be able to weather the storm that is currently happening so that they can still give that ultimate message of community as well as psychological safety and also organizational resilience. So when it comes to ERGs, they're no longer just good for culture. They have to be understood and marketed as essential to the business, whether it be risk mitigation, talent development, or innovation pipelines. The soft intentions around ERGs are no longer working. There has to be strategic alignment. And to be clear, whether you have a CSR or ESG or both, they do matter, but they're not the same. So when it comes to your corporate social responsibility or your CSR, that's your company's promise, the story that you tell about what you believe. Where the ESG, that's your environmental social governance, is the proof. It's the measurable, audible evidence that leadership, investors, and even regulators demand. Now, keep in mind, you can track CSR impact, but not every metric needs to be financial. You can track volunteer hours, promotion rates from your ERGs, community partnerships that have been built, and any policy change that may have come about from the communal support of the ERGs as well as all of the employees within the organization. So ERGs need to be set up as resilient drivers. It's a strategy, not just for survival, but a way for them to thrive. And here's one thing, ERGs are already doing a lot of heavy lifting. So we're not asking the ERGs to change their mission. We're just asking them to adjust the message, to package it in a way that leadership, investors, and employees recognize ERGs as being essential to business. Now, part of that is having this complete shift from being identity led to impact led. And let me be very clear when I talk about this shift. I'm not saying that identity doesn't matter. In fact, that's the exact opposite. Identity is the source of the impact, it's the lived experience, it's the unique insights, it's the leadership gaps that you notice, and it's the inequities that you refuse to normalize that fuels the work. So we are just shifting how we frame it, but we are in no way, shape, form, or fashion erasing identity. Impact first does not erase identity. Impact first makes identity undeniable. So the first move is to reframe the language. We have to get out of the old internal vocabulary and step into a more business language focused vocabulary. For instance, safe spaces, community groups, support networks. A new framing around that could be psychological safety metrics, leadership equity initiatives, talent pipeline accelerators. And a specific example is instead of saying that our ERG is a safe space, you can say our ERG drives psychological safety outcomes linked to leadership retention and innovation capacity. It's the same work, but one of these versions gets you a nice thank you email, and the other one can get you a line item in a board report. And so when we think about the second shift, connecting the dots. So every ERG initiative should be able to plug directly into either your CSR or your ESG frameworks. You don't have to guess. Since your company already has this information published and it spells out exactly what they're prioritizing, you can just pull that in. So when you think about talent and transparency and ethics, you're running a mentorship program. That's leadership equity. You're hosting inclusive hiring panels. That's governance transparency. You're leading a bias training. That's ethics and risk mitigation. Use their language to tell your story. The reality is that your ESG or your CSR playbooks aren't designed to erase the human stories. They are designed to make sure that leadership cannot ignore them. So when we're moving or shifting away from identity first or identity led, we're moving through identity and straight into business impact. The question shouldn't be who are we? The question should be what are we challenging? What measurable gaps are we closing? And who can't afford to ignore it anymore? So moving on to the other three shifts. When we're looking at the shift and reframing it, we need to understand first how we talk about it and then how we're connecting to it. And then we move into the structure around it. You can't scale or you can't scale trust or protect your work without a strategy. And that's because your ERG has the right intention, but if it doesn't have the support, it is very vulnerable. So it's about locking in systems that protect identity through strategy. So when we think about building measurable initiatives, if your ERG program can't be measured, it can't be defended. You need KPIs not to prove your humanity or your worth, but to prove your impact. So when it comes to retention, are ERG members staying with the organization longer than non-members? When it comes to pipeline, how are your ERG leaders moving into management and performance? Are your ERG engaged teams reporting higher engagement scores? This is not about doing extra work, it's about the translation. Most ERGs are already moving the needle on one or all three of these things. You just need to have a dashboard to show it. Your program, and then this is a question that I want to position out to you guys. And you don't have to answer it in the chat or anything, but I just want you to think about this. If your ERG program disappeared tomorrow, what metric would suffer? And if you can come up with that, that's your business case for your ERGs. And shift forward. Rewrite the ERG purpose statement. Too many ERG charters lead with emotional language and stop short of strategic value, and that's a problem. So, for example, we're a group of employees with shared backgrounds to feel safe and connected. That's the old way. A more inclusive way for everyone is that we accelerate leadership equity and retention through this particular ERG while fostering innovation and psychological safety across the organization. It is broad enough for everyone to feel included, but specific enough to share your impact. It's not about watering it down, it's about giving it its armor. A business first framing does not shrink your mission, it can scale it. It takes it to a more serious level where everyone can fully understand. And a lot of times that's where ERGs run into issues is that people don't necessarily understand what the ERGs are for or what they're doing. And when you rewrite your purpose statement in that language framework, it makes it a lot easier for everyone to understand and support. And then the last shift is creating a pre-legal plan. So here's the hard truth. Waiting for legal or HR to tell you what you should do is going to put you behind the eight ball. It's going to make you have to adjust to what they think you should do versus you getting ahead and saying, hey, here's what we're trying to do. We just need to make sure we're in alignment with you guys as far as what we can do, the wording we can use, and if we're pushing boundaries, what boundaries we should not be pushing. So if you're planning on having bold programming panels, call-ins, or building a relationship with HR and legal, you need to do it before it becomes an issue. You need to work with them to understand any escalation process. You need to understand what legal boundaries you need to keep and respect while also pushing boundaries. So again, you want to see what can bend, but what cannot break. And then what kind of allyship are executives truly ready to sponsor? So these are conversations that you can have ahead of time to help frame your plan so that one, it is effective, and two, it is something that one legal understands and they know that you're preparing and they also can support. So when you think about alignment, it's not a sellout move, it's not an erasure move, it's a power move to get you resourced, protected, and repeated. And the goal is truly simple: structure that shields, strategy that scales, and language that travels. So when we think about risk to resilience, here's another truth that a lot of people won't say out loud. ERGs that cling to identity only narratives without trying to impact are the ones that are getting reviewed, stalled, or cut. Strategic framework is around survival. And I know a lot of people are resistant to that, and I've heard that resistance from some ERG leaders, but this is where we are. And I'm here to help you figure out a way to truly not just survive, but to thrive. And if that means that you have to reframe some things, then that's what it takes. And if you're not willing to do that, then you run the risk of it not working out for your program overall and leaving the people that have honestly put in a lot of effort, work effort, and energy to feel just defeated. And I'm quite sure none of us want that. So when we think about identity led language can equal more reviews, and it can come across as something that is specific to one particular group while isolating another. And the message is not built to withstand a compliance or governance lens. Um, while words like safe space, empowerment, healing, they're all valid, but to legal, they're read as risk. To leadership, they're read as unmeasurable. To detractors, they're become easy targets. And it's not about stripping those away at all. No, they can still be in the communication that you use, but they're just not the first thing that comes out. And then reframing equals elevation. The shift may be subtle, but it's very powerful. You're going from who we are to what we impact. From we support marginalized employees to we strengthen organizational retention and leadership equity by addressing systemic barriers. Again, it's not about erasure, it's about elevation. You are not minimizing your identity, you are raising the value of the language that boards, auditors, and regulators track. And then when you have all of these things, you're matching your message to your values. You can think of your ERG as an internal investment and a match to pitch your ESG report or your CSR. Is your work impacting talent access? That's social for your ESG. Are you driving internal policy awareness? That's governance. Are you helping improve psychological safety and ethics reporting? That's both. You don't need a 50-page ESG report to start. Just pick one value that your ERG is already contributing to and just name that out loud. I love to tell my clients, don't go out here try to do everything and be everything for everyone. Just pick one thing that you can see alignment with, that you can see impact with, and then you use that as your jumping off point to show your impact, because impact equals legitimacy. So when you think about, if you don't have the metrics right now to prove it, that's okay. It's not about having everything up front, it's just being able to make the equation. So impact doesn't require a 5-year data set. It just requires a business lens. You can say we've supported X number of new hires. We've increased first year retention by X percent. We're seeing higher engagement in departments with active ERG leads. If you're not there to have the metrics to support your impact, that's okay. You just need to start now. But you can still say what impact that you have been able to do. You just might not have the numbers at this point in time. And again, that's okay because you're still connecting what you're doing to the impact you're looking to use. And so I have an example of some language that shields and scales on the presentation. So from a legacy framework, we create safe spaces for marginalized groups. You can change that to we drive psychological safety that improves engagement and retention. We empower underrepresented voices. We expand leadership equity by activating unrepresented talent. We celebrate cultural heritage. We strengthen cross-cultural competency and inclusive collaboration. We speak truth to power. We surface employee insights that inform ethical decision making. We advocate for justice in the workplace. We reduce bias risk and increase trust through transparent initiatives. Again, this is not about erasure. This is about elevating the impact and the identity that is driving that impact. So you can do both. You just have to be creative around how you're doing it. And the intent is the same, but you just have smarter optics and a bigger buy-in. So the message is all about, you don't need to dilute, you are defending. You are building your ERG brand so that it's strategic to the organization as well as all the employees within it. You are framing it in a way that doesn't make corporate look at it like it's a hobby, nice to have, or even a liability. You're making it a true asset and you are also making it resilient. Again, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put those into the chat. Um, okay, so the thing about the alignment can is in two folds. It's an initiative alignment as well as a stakeholder alignment, and there are four steps with that. Because alignment isn't about anything happening accidental or happenstance. It is a map, and without it, you can get lost, you can get buried, and you can get forgotten. So, starting around step one, just choose one initiative. Do not start with five. Don't even start with two. Just pick one. Particularly because this probably may be the first time you're doing it. So you want to see what works, what doesn't work, and what you should never do again. And when you start with one, it's a lot easier to do that. So pick something that is visible, strategic, and already getting traction. So you can think about a leadership accelerator, a hiring partnership with a community organization, or a mental health roundtable that becomes a staple. Just pick that one thing that will make the biggest signal and start building that business profile. The second step, connecting to the CSR or ESG. Next, label it. Not your internal mission, not with your internal mission, but with the framework your company is already using. So, with your CSR, community values, external partnerships, think social impact, giving back, employee volunteerism. It's great for ERGs who are active in the community or active with nonprofits. For your ESG, which is investor facing and data driven, this is where you can use the language around risk mitigation, governance, talent, equity, or compliance. If your initiative is affecting employee experience, retention, or policy, it belongs there. Your initiative may hit both, but decide where you're going to plant your flag and do not be vague. Be very specific. And step three in the initiative alignment is defining your metrics. You are the one that defines what success looks like. So do not overcomplicate it. Just answer these simple questions. What exactly are we trying to change? How will we know if it is working? What is our baseline? And what will we measure and how often? And let me give you an example. Increasing ERG member to manager promotion rate by 10% this year. Doubling the attendance at a cross-functional inclusion lab event by Q3. Move new hire engagement scores in ERG supported departments up 5 points. This turns your program into a case study, not a calendar invite. And for those of you who have a lot of calendar invites for things, I really recommend that you take some stock and assess whether those are impactful events that you should be having your calendar or you're just filling your calendar just to fill the calendar. So when it comes to the initiative alignment, keep it visible, keep it verifiable, and keep it simple. Do not overcomplicate it because trust me, 9 times out of 10, you're already doing it. You just need to connect the dots. And so moving over to stakeholder alignment, you need champions and gatekeepers at the table early. So, for instance, connecting with HR for data access, headcount impact, and retention insights. Legal for risk framing and pre clearance, especially if your work is bold. If you are pushing the envelope and trying to bend a couple of things, making sure that you're working with legal before you put stuff out versus them coming and finding you and telling you no and take all of that down and don't do any of that. And then also your comms teams. They're often the internal publisher of what gets celebrated in reports. So look at these people as your allies and your gatekeepers, not obstacles. They can amplify what you're doing if you engage them early and not after the fact. And if you don't, then you run the risk of your initiatives hitting a wall or not even being acknowledged at all. And we don't want that. And then the last step is around drafting your alignment statement. And this is the one sentence that will do more for your visibility and credibility than anything else. And an example that you can use is that this ERG contributes to this one particular CSR or ESG pillar by the initiative through the impact. So that's like the template of the statement. So here are a couple examples. This ERG contributes to the CSG social pillar by mentoring first generation professionals through a leadership pipeline that boosts internal promotion rates. Second example, this ERG contributes to CSR by leading community literacy events that enhance our brand equity and employee engagement. It's not about fluff. This is about getting quoted in town halls and ESG reports. If you can't say it in one sentence, you're not ready to pitch it. And what I'm going to do for those of you that have joined us today, as well as those of you that are watching a replay, I do have an CSR ESG alignment guide that I will be sharing with you all as my gift to you to start you on this road. So remember, one aligned initiative, just one, can change how leadership sees you. And once they see you as a strategic value, they will support you. So, what does all of this look like when you put it together? It looks like alignment because hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a plan. Hope does not build visibility. Hope does not build trust. Hope does not build transparency. You want to be building a visible, strategic alignment fast, clearly, and at an executive level. And here's the thing, you don't have to do it alone. I have created ERG alignment and impact sprint. So this is built for you who are leaders, program managers that are doing the work, but you need something structured, you need it fast, and you need it to create visibility. And the way that I've created it is that it's 4 weeks. And when I say 4 weeks, I mean 4 weeks. It is fully virtual, and you will end with executive facing output. So you'll be able to have that one high impact initiative matched to either your CSR or your ESG, a strategic narrative that speaks to legal and leadership, KPIs that actually make sense for your ERG size and scope, and a short, sharp alignment statement ready for your next quarterly business review. And the prep to present it confidently, concisely, and without feeling like you're making it up as you go. I am not one that stays on theory. I take theory and put it into practicality. And so this is a fast, done for you way to build the kind of alignment that protects your work and positions you at first scale. Because as we all know, with this current administration, things are getting thrown every single day, all the time. And you don't want to sit here and either be frozen in fear of not knowing what to do, and that you don't want to be playing defense all the time, either trying to justify what you're doing. You want to have something in hand that is your playbook, that is your sounding board, that is what you use to present your ERG program as the business asset that it is. And so with the sprint, you will have clarity. You won't just sit up here and be like, okay, what do we do now? This will turn all the pressure you currently have or could be having into something that is strategic and in hand. It is not an endless workshop. It is not 6 months of consulting. It is something that I have mapped out. It is a mini strategy engine. I have used the strategies that I've worked with previous clients with and taken into account some of the obstacles that we're currently dealing with. It starts with a discovery call that will be quick and focused. And I do have intake forms that you guys will fill out to understand your structure, your priorities, and your pain point. This is going to be very informative to me to help tailor your positionings for you. And we dig into your current materials, your charter, your mission, your goals, any past programming, and then we'll help you reframe them to use strategic executive ready language. We'll pull your impact out of the shadows so that it can be front hand lines for everyone. And then we'll have a 2 hour strategy workshop. It'll be virtual. We'll deep dive into your anchor initiative, map it to a pillar, and write your alignment statement live. By the time the session ends, there's no guessing, you are pitching. And you will walk away with a PDF of your customized alignment plan. So it is going to be formatted for you to either hand over to HR and legal or your executive sponsors or teams, or it's something that you can take, and if you need to reframe it, you can, but it will be ready to go by the end of the 4 weeks. And then I will call and check in with you guys, or we can have another meeting. I'm not just going to ghost you. I want to make sure that you are prepped up for success because, again, it is about supporting you so that you're not just trying to be stuck in survival mode, but that you can actually thrive throughout the chaos that a lot of you have been experiencing with what's been going on lately, either internally and or externally. And then what could happen if you stay misaligned? I know this might seem like a lot of work, and that's why I showed you that I am here to support you, but understand that it can cost you a lot to stay misaligned. Misalignment is not neutral. If you just wait for something to happen for you to figure it out, it can be expensive from budget standpoint, meaning that you don't have a budget or it's reduced, your trust from your ERG leaders or as members are eroded, or even outside uh, team members, and then the time that you've pushed. So even though leadership may see passion, that's not impact. Passion without proof does it gets treated as a nice to have, not a business need and a business asset. And if legal is unsure, they will stall your program. And it's not that they're doing it out of hate or happenstance, but they don't want anything that can be perceived as a risk waving its tail around. They are trying to mitigate risk as much as possible. And then without a roadmap, you can get deprioritized because people are like, well, what are you doing? What are you building? Why do you need budget? Why do you need support? What does all of this have to do with the business? I want to help you curb all of that. I want to help you create a picture where one, you are a trusted asset within the organization, and then two, you are not out here just flailing trying to figure it out. And again, in that defensive mode, you are being proactive and you are setting yourself and your ERG program up for success. And so I walked through all of those. And so when we think about what that could look like, I want you to know that if you are walking into a leadership meeting and you're not hoping for support, but you're showing your strategy, it makes alignment a sure lock because your initiatives are no longer floated in isolation. They are plugged into your organization through your ESG and your CSR frameworks. They show up in leadership briefings. They can show up even in investor communications. If you guys haven't noticed or heard, Costco and Marriott double down on their DEI, and that has gotten them all of the publicity, all of the PR that they could possibly ask for in the most positive way. And they're being seen as inclusive places, great places to work, where their customers are feeling seen, heard, and valued. Their employees are feeling seen, heard, and valued. And that is just because of the strategy that they've chosen to stand on. They've chosen to stand on what makes sense for their mission, their vision. And that is something that you guys can do as well, should you and your organization choose to go that route. But if you don't have this together, then how can anyone else know it? How can anyone see outside of that? So, yes, even though Costco and Marriott have these grand things of, yes, we do DEI, if their ERGs have been plugged in the way that I'm telling you to be plugged in, they could have been highlighted as well. It's like our ERGs are so plugged in that they do X, Y, and Z, and they're totally committed to that. And that's a part of the DEI support that we're giving our organization. So you can have all of those tie-ins and it can be something that is visible, not just within your community or your industry, but globally. And then with executives, instead of begging them for visibility, the executives are asking for your playbook updates. You are no longer pitching an uphill battle. You are being pulled into quarterly reports, quarterly meetings, and you are asked, hey, what's going on with this initiative? How is this going? And you have your framework together to present that information concisely and in a way that shows your impact. And again, you're walking confident because you have these metrics. Metrics work, but please keep in mind that they need to be flexible and adaptable because sometimes things change and not everything goes to plan. But once you have a plan, you're able to give yourself enough cushion to be able to adapt. And that's one thing that I show you how to do within the sprint or any other way that you work with me, because I want you to know, like, hey, we are here to help you, support you, and make this happen. So when it comes to your ERGs, they can be strategic, they can be impactful, and they can be highlighted beyond your organization. And this happens because you are being intentional about how you are showing the connection, highlighting what you're doing, and pushing the impact behind the identity behind the impact. So all of these things are more than possible for you. You just have to be strategic with what you do and how you do it. And if you're looking for, well, how does all of this matter? What does all of this look like? If you don't take anything else from this webinar other than you can get alignment with legal and HR, then I feel good about it. If you understand that you can stay visible and get your initiatives done in uncertain times, I'm okay with that. If you can avoid hiring a full-time strategist where you're like, hey, we don't have a six-figure budget for this, but there's an opportunity for you to get support in a way that you need that's fast, concise, and can be within your budget. And then you can show up ready to move forward in a proactive way versus scrambling in a reactive way. Then coming to this webinar or watching this webinar has surely been worth it. And I promise you that if you work with me, it'll also be worth it. But my point is that you have the opportunity to really leave being frazzled, being stuck, and being afraid of what could happen when you have a strategic plan that positions yourself as this is what should happen and this is what can happen if we do X, Y, and Z. You are poised, you are confident, and you are owning the room because you have done the work. And there's no reason why the work that you've done should not be acknowledged, supported, and taken care of moving forward. So before we dive into the questions, I just want you to remember that your ERG program can be strategic and get protected. And misaligned ERGs that are just nice to have or check boxes get questioned, siloed, and sometimes dismantled. So the cost of waiting is losing the ground that you already rebuilt. And I don't want that for you. I want you to feel protected and anchored in the work that you do so that you can be viewed as strategic, you can be viewed as aligned, and you can be viewed as a business asset. So, with that, I knew I threw a lot of information at you, so I wanted to make sure that we had more than enough time to go over questions around what this looks like. So I'm going to open it up to Q&A.
Thank you, Sharita. Folks, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or um, in the Q&A field.
Oh, do you mind dropping my link for me? If you guys find that you have, or if you all find that you have any questions or would like to book a discovery call with me to discuss where you are, please feel free to click the link to schedule a free discovery call with me, and we could talk about where you are, what you need, and how you can be supported.
Okay. One question. Sharita, if our organization doesn't have a CSR report or an established ESG campaign, what are some other ways that we can tie it back to business objectives?
Well, you can look at what are your business objectives for the year. If you don't have them by over the next 12 months, and let's say is a 5-year plan, look at your planned business objectives and see where you can find alignment. Typically, there's at least one that's related to employee retention or employee engagement. Um, or even if you have sales. So sometimes people are like, well, we have stuff, but we don't see how it connects. That's where I come in. I am that puzzle maker that can show you how you can connect to it. but just look at your overall organizational objectives for the next year, or if they have it spread out for the next, 2 to 5 years. Look at what's important for them and see how you can directly connect it to your current initiatives or your ERG priorities.
Great. Another question, can you speak more about the role that executive sponsors can play in creating greater visibility and business alignment for ERGs?
So your executive sponsors are your sponsors. Like they are the ones that need to be talking about you in the rooms that you are not in. So getting in alignment with them is really key and important. So sharing this plan with them is key for them getting aligned to what you are trying to do, but also what you need from them. So when you're thinking about building out this plan, make sure that you have your executive sponsors, however many you have, in mind when you're building this out. Let them know what you're doing and let them know why you're doing it. And then let them know when you have it complete to share with them. Do a presentation for them. If you can get them all in one room, great. If not, do a recording and send it all to them. And then give them a way to get back to you with questions, and then make sure that you, whatever questions you have from any of your executive sponsors, share that with all of them, because sometimes they may be thinking the same but may not ask it. But it also creates a sense of transparency and a sense of alignment that they are looking to include all of them and get their support. So be very transparent with them, and but also make sure that they are included in a part of the creation of this plan. You're muted.
Sorry. Next question. I don't have access to a lot of the metrics you discussed, things like retention rates, hiring information, engagement survey results by demographic. How do we show our impact if we can't measure in these ways?
If you can't, um, if you don't have it because you haven't gotten access to it or haven't asked for it, that's one thing. If you don't have it because you're not allowed to, that's another thing. So let's start from the lens of you don't have it because you haven't access to. If you are just an individual leader, talk to your ERG program manager about actually, can you, whoever asked that question, can you let me know if you're an individual leader or a program manager? Because that dictates how I answer this question as well.
Program manager.
Okay, so talk to HR about what it is that you're trying to do. Let them know, hey, we are trying to create metrics around our impact, and we're looking to create a baseline for, let's just say, employee retention for ERG members versus non-ERG members. So be very specific about what you want the information for, and let them know that you don't need the protected information. You just need the overarching numbers so that you can create, one, your baseline, and then two, you can see changes over a particular period of time. So you have to have your ask, what you're asking for, be very specific, be non-protected information that you're asking for if you're outside of HR and don't have or should not have access to that information, and then let them know why you're asking for it. Because if you just say, hey, I need the demographics of the people who left, they're gonna be like, why do you need it? What do you need it for? Or say no altogether. So you want to be very intentional about saying what you're asking for, why you're asking for it, and making sure that you let them know that you don't need or require protected information. You just need a number for these individuals that have either left, that'll let you know that they were a part of ERG or not part of ERG. And they'll be willing to work with you if you position it in that way, and letting them know, like, hey, we're trying to position ourselves to show impact, but we need to start gathering data. And then also, if you are not working with Chesy, you should work with Chesy, because the way that their software is made up, that they can help position you to get metrics that maybe you are not able to get from HR, so that you can start creating those baseline metrics and KPIs that way. It's a really good software. So if you have not scheduled a demo to see how that could possibly work for you from a metric standpoint, I strongly suggest that you make that appointment.
Appreciate the shout out. Last question here. It says, how do you suggest practitioners make the case for that HR data you spoke about early in your presentation, especially in the current climate where identity markers are problematic? I don't know what happened. I think we might have lost Sharita. Okay. Well, I see some other questions in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and take note of these and I'll send them over to Sharita. And I'll make sure that and I'll make sure that in the follow-up information when I send out the recording that we have the answers to those questions. Apologies for the technical difficulties, but I appreciate everyone joining. Again, I'm Dumebi Igbuna. I'm one of the co-founders of Chezi. If you ever want to speak with us or learn more about our software, feel free to reach out. We'd love to take you through a demo. But I'll make sure that those questions get to Sharita. But we're going to close it out here. So thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah.